summoned you here for a purpose.
TransformYourGame.net.
Welcome one, welcome all. This is part 2 of episode 3 for the Transform Your Game podcast. I, as always, am your host and moderator, Richard. I'm joined by my 3 beautiful and magnanimous co-hosts, Kent, Kai, and Joel. Say hi, guys.
What's up?
Oh my god!
Hey.
Moving right along from that, we're back with the remainder of the Wave 5 spoilers as of Tuesday, March the 3rd. We've got stratagems, I guess really only one, and battle cards galore, though, that we can talk about. Before we get to those, however, don't forget that the 7th Annual Hunter Burton Memorial Open will be taking place in Texas. I believe it's up in the Dallas area at the end of March. The 28th will be the date of the actual Transformers tournament because they're expanding their menu of games this year. They're supporting us and a couple others. If you have any interest in supporting a great cause and raising suicide awareness, and you also want to engage in tournament-level play for the game that we so love, you can do so then. The tournament starts at 1, as long as the schedule isn't going to change between now and then, but make sure you leave ample time just in case. Now, fellas, as we give our wonderful listeners time to pull up their handy-dandy spoilers from Computron's lab or the like, what is your favorite character, stratagem, or battle card that we've had spoiled so far?
These are a few of my favorite things.
For me, it's definitely Windsweeper. In preliminary testing with this character, I don't think I built it right. I think I leaned really heavy into blue and possibly not enough attack damage or burst damage, but it's going to be a long mountain to climb to make that character really shine probably the way they want him to, but definitely strong and fun.
For me, even though I haven't played with him yet, it'd still be Skull Smasher. I just love the thematic of always having Pierce against Autobots and being able to do damage to enemies that are lower than him.
Boo, Autobots.
Go
Autobot
bad guys.
scum.
Go bad guys.
I think for me, it's going to have to be Orbital Strike. I know that might seem strange with me being a aggro kind of player, but it actually sort of plays into that because you're wanting to play a bunch of ways to flip cards, and I love dealing massive amounts of damage, just taking somebody out really, really fast. Well, Orbital Strike deals infinite damage to whoever Autobot Cosmos is swinging at, and that card I think takes Cosmos from absolutely unplayable to something that you really have to consider.
I will say this. I did play a match for fun the other day with a proxied up Cosmos deck using Orbital Strike and Belligerence and some other Wave 5 cards. And I was able to, because of the stratagem, swing and KO a combined Sky Shadow. And
Nice.
It felt awesome. Because I was like, oh, you're giant, dude? Got him.
Yep, there you go.
Speaking of Sky Shadow, that's actually my favorite character that's been spoiled. I know I'm kind of cheating because I'm picking 2 character cards and a stratagem and a head. But like kind of like the combined nature of it, like once it all comes into Sky Shadow Elite Warrior and he's all assembled, that's my favorite card. I just think it's so unique and it's really awesome that it pulls in mechanics from a lot of different, from several different kind of sets, like when they were introduced. I think he's the most interesting and highest power level dude. It's one of like the non-traditional combiners that we've seen so far, in my opinion. Well, now that we've discussed that, I think it's as good a segue as any to move on to the cards themselves. Kent, why don't you kick us off with the one remaining stratagem we'll be discussing?
Well, this is I've got better things to do than die. Actually, I think they toned it down a little bit to better things to do than die. Obviously, this is a nod to the 1986 Transformers animated movie, which I'm a huge fan of.
I got better things to do tonight than die.
Yeah, and that's a very famous line that Springer says. And if you ever watch the special features, they do interviews with the actors and actresses that voice the characters. And I can't remember the name of the actor that actually voiced Springer off the top of my head, but he said like he still has people like come up to him just randomly and say that line just to get his attention. Onto the stratagem. Oh, this is maybe not my favorite. Like Springer needed more help than this. It says when your Springer aerial defense is on the battlefield and you flip him to another mode, repair 1 damage from him. Yeah, I honestly wish instead it said that he doesn't need the appropriate upgrade to give him Bold 2, Tough 2, or Pierce. I think that would have been much stronger because kind of shackling him to that, especially the Pierce mode, like he has to have a utility to use the Pierce in bot mode. It's just that makes that card really, really tough to play. Whereas otherwise he might be pretty decent, but with all the upgrade hate that we have in this game, your opponent can make sure that you never get that bonus that you want with Springer. And the repair 1, it's just not what he needed.
So I actually kind of like this card because it actually gives Springer a defined role now. He's basically, with this card, it makes him a tank because even with, like, say, Bashing Shield or extra padding, he has Tough 2 from that and on top of whatever defense his armor is giving him. So if you just have that even just for a turn and then you repair when you heal from him, I think it just makes him a really tanky unit. But I think this is one of those cases where it had to be like 1.5 repair for it to like really matter, but they can't do that obviously, and they can't do it to 2 because that'd be insane because of how often you can transform in a turn, where that you can make yourself transform in a turn. So I think 1 is fine, but he wasn't. It goes along with the line of them making the stratagem as like something, not a straight upgrade, but like as a side grade type of deal. And I think the stratagem gives him a role, which I like about that.
Yeah, as far as his star cost was in the first place, he was overcosted for his stats anyway, and now you're making him cost 1 more star. That's a big part of the reason that he never saw any play. That, and like Kent said, it's really easy to turn off all of his abilities. So he's almost a vanilla character, and now you're adding another star to heal 1 damage. There's got to be better things that you can do with your flips. If your entire deck is just based on doing nothing but flipping Springer, and we're talking about Wave 2 Springer, then good luck.
Yeah, I do think it's important to make note that we're talking about Wave 2 Springer, the super rare, the unplayable super rare, not the Wave 4 Springer, who is the massively playable common. I agree. I think the problem is that Autobot Springer, in his original incarnation, was 1 to 2 stars overcosted anyway, right, for his stats. And I think that the stratagem they gave him it's certainly useful, and I agree with Kai that it definitely gives him a defined role. I actually played in a match in one of our weeklies recently where someone brought a Springer deck that was the only character who flipped was Springer, and they would have that card, it's kinetic or conversion engine on him, so they were able to use him as kind of a damage sponge. But the problem was if I was ever able to do large chunks of damage at any one time, he just couldn't keep up with it, and he didn't have the damage output because Springer lacks offensive stats, as well as a real health total for his star cost. So I think this, like Camion Toughness, was a miss as a stratagem for the Wave 2 super rares. I think that it doesn't fully address one of the problems that occurred with Springer himself, right? I wouldn't be surprised, though, given that we've gotten Camion Toughness for Windblade and we've gotten better things to do than die for Springer. I think it'd be interesting and very possible for us to get one for Blitzwing as well. Which, fingers crossed, that maybe that one's good. Who knows?
Hopefully, I really like Blitzwing, and I have to say that during Wave 2, Kai put together like this ingenious Blitzwing deck. It's just Blitzwing, his stats were just a little low for his cost to really push the deck into like tournament competitive. But it was, I thought it was a work of genius the way he put it together.
That's high praise. Okay. Well, I don't think we have much more to say on that, so why don't we move on to the battle cards?
All right, so Speed Trap.
Ludicrous speed! Go!
Speed Trap is a white-green secret action, and reveal when your opponent plays an action, and it's the second action they played this turn. When revealed, scrap that action and it has no effect. Your opponent cannot play actions this turn. So, no combo. Yay.
I think this card is a sideboard card. I think that it's useful against all forms of combo. And the fact that it's a white pip, I think, is huge, right? I think one of the things that held Hijack back as a piece of combo hate was the fact that its predominant pip color was black, which was oftentimes off color for whatever deck was trying to play the combo hate. The fact that Speed Trap is white means it's kind of always on color, right? Like there's not really anything that doesn't want to play a white pip in it. And the fact that it's green so you can actually pick it up when it's relevant is really great because it means you don't have to actually play like full numbers of it if you want to see the effect. I will say this. I don't know how effective it is because I feel like your opponent can probably just play around it. It might end up just buying you a turn because they know you have it. They might just play an equipment enthusiast and attack you or something, and that'll be what they do for turn. If you do ever manage to catch somebody with it, that seems awesome. And I do think it's really interesting that you could play them in like successive turns, right? So you could play one, and then if they didn't do anything, or they didn't really actually try to go off, and then the next turn you played another combo hate secret action, whether it's Hijack or Speed Trap, then I think at a certain point you've bought yourself so much time that you might just be able to win off of the like tempo earned. You know what I mean? I still don't know that it's anywhere near as good as just playing Gears in his stratagem, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at Speed Trap and I go, no! Yeah. And that one turn that they may buy by playing this card is likely enough to like disrupt the combo deck's tempo enough so that they can't pop off. And between Gears and Speed Trap, it makes me wonder why they're printing so many safety valves. Because the combo deck as it stands right now is not tier 1. And it makes me wonder if there are going to be more cards revealed this set that enable a new combo deck. I would love to see a Decepticon-based combo deck because thus far they've all been Autobot-based.
Wait. You're forgetting about Oa Shockwave.
Yeah, that's not really hey, I just won the game, though. Like, and that's not tier 1 either.
No,
it's
cute.
Not. It's a cute deck. It's fun, but it's not a degenerate thing that, man, you better be ready for that. You better have some sideboard hate for that deck, or you just can't win the tournament, kind of thing. So we'll see. I'm hoping that there's a new combo deck revealed through either this set or the next one.
That makes one of us.
And like it's funny because multi-mission gear was banned also, and this one is specifically targeting multiple actions, which obviously Springer, Wave 4 Springer, is the first thing that pops into mind because that's the only way to get extra actions right now. But are they printing something else that allows you to get an additional action besides, flipping Wave 2 Bumblebee or Wave 1 Mirage?
There's also Brainstorm and Confidence.
Sure.
Like those are cards that do see play, but they're in specifically the combo deck. I don't think this has enough broad applications to be a main deck card, but I think it's pretty easy to throw one in your sideboard and go, I'm good.
Yeah, because when I was at when the Pro Play Tour in Dallas happened, that was when combo was like at its highest scare. So if you look at the list that I ran, I only ran one hijack in the sideboard, and the idea behind that was, so as soon as I pick it up, you have to respect every single secret action I do, and I think this is probably the card you should probably be doing that for, and more hijack, like 2 or 3 hijacks and 1 speed trap, and then just have the speed trap be like, oh, you have to respect it.
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me.
And if you don't respect it, then you get blown out. So I think that might be the intention of having that, of speed trap in the game, because I also think that they want combo to be in the game. They've said that for sure. So I think they're just doing all these safety valves for safe, just to like, so players have some way to keep it in check should something come out of the woodworks.
Interesting. You're such a madman, Kai.
I am crazy. That side deck is terrible.
All right. Well, I think let's move on to the next safety valve, which I believe it's Joel's turn.
Okay. So the next card is Reflect Damage. It's a green pip secret action. Reveal if exactly one of your characters would take non-attack damage from an opponent's card. And when revealed, instead do that much non-attack damage to an enemy. This is a really interesting card because there's so much direct damage running around. I think the only drawback to it is that it says exactly one of your characters. So it doesn't stop things like armed hovercraft or other multi-character dealing damage cards.
Photon Bomb, for example.
Right, but I mean, I guess Photon Bomb sees some play, but
Not really, but it might. Who knows?
Photon Bomb's a decent sideboard card. I really think Erratic Energy Grenade is a card that will see more play when people figure out how to make a black pip focus deck.
Well, Erratic Energy Grenade is a card you can't reflect damage, though.
Right, exactly. But
Okay.
we're just talking about broad, sweeping damage that hits everybody. I think the card that this really nerfs is Overwhelming Advantage.
Oh, yeah. Huge safety out for them. Saying, no, I don't take 15, your guy takes 15 is really nuts.
Yeah, that is nuts.
And the Overwhelming Advantage deck is very much like the way I've kind of like described it being played is like a roller coaster, right? So the whole game kind of feels like you're going up and up and up and up and up, and they hit a point and they do a thing, right? It's not quite like the Daring Escape deck where it just feels like they're just playing solitaire in front of you. Like the Overwhelming Advantage deck very much builds to a turn, it does a thing, and then it's done. So I think if you're able to do things like play the mind games that Kai is talking about, where you pick up the secret actions so they have to respect every single one you play, I think you can buy yourself a serious amount of time and maybe enough that you can play other disruptive pieces, right? Maybe you draw a bashing shield to blow up whatever armor they have on their guy that they want to use Overwhelming Advantage on, right? Like I think this card is going to be really good at that. I wish that it had a white pip on it. I think it might be good enough to main deck in that instance because there's like sturdy javelins running around. There are marksman ships from older formats, though I don't know how relevant that'll be going forward. I do think One Shall Stand, One Shall Fall might make a comeback, and this card is very good against that. It just turns it into I take no damage, your guys take 6 damage.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm more excited about this one generally than I am about Speed Trap, personally.
Yeah, I think direct damage has gone largely unchecked for probably a little too long now, to where the power level discrepancies between range and melee and specialist is probably a little too much, to where every time we're reviewing a character, he's like, oh, it's not ranged. Well, okay. So I think this is a step in the right direction that I know a lot of people aren't going to like, but it feels necessary.
I actually think we're one step past that. We're at the point where, like, when we see a card and a character and its specialist, we're like, oh, great, that can wear an armor against all the ranged guys.
Sure.
Right? Like, it's past the point where, like, oh, he's ranged, he's playable. We're at the point where, like, oh, he's specialist, he can rock, paper, scissors out the ranged. The next card that we're going to be talking about is actually Escape Capsule. This is cool because it's one of the cards like we're seeing that is actually additional support for the heads and bodies that are present in Titan Masters. So it's an orange-black pip upgrade. It's a utility, gives you +1 attack, and when you deploy the upgraded character's head, you put this, meaning the Escape Capsule, and any other upgrades that were on the upgraded character onto the deployed character. So if you had, some kind of big weapon or like an Energon Axe, or if you had a bashing shield or anything like that, those would go onto the deployed character instead of being scrapped, which means you can kind of preserve some of what you've built over the course of the game. And the fact that the card has pretty good pips on it is pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised to see this play over some of the literally unplayable cards in the orange-black Pierce deck. Right? Like, they could cut, like, the Opportune Repairs, which literally do no things in their deck, for this, which does give +1 attack.
Yeah, obviously better there. That the orange-black, Pierce Madness deck definitely has a lot of dead cards that are just there for the pips, since you have all that innate build built into your characters. Escape Capsule, this is almost any deck that is running a Titan Master wants 3 copies of this in their deck. You want to be able to put this in the utility slot of the body mode so that everything just transfers over and makes that little Titan Master something respectable. And hey, maybe it can go in and finish the job and not just be this like, oh, well, they got to waste an attack on this little dude. Also, something to think about is how this works with Fortress Maximus. So you can put it on Fortress Maximus. Now, is it 9 attack? When you finally kill Fort Max, all of his upgrades go to Cerebros. Kill Cerebros, they all go into your Titan Master. So it just like keeps following. All the upgrades follow all the way down the chain. It's a definitely 3 of in that deck.
Yeah, and I do think it is a 3 of in the orange-black decks that I was touting in part 1.
I think this card's got a pretty sick picture. Honestly, looks pretty sweet with the head popping off there like that. But yeah, seriously though, this card does have a lot of use in an aggressive deck. I don't know if you'd really want to play it in a defensive deck. As a 3 of. I don't know if you want that in your blue deck. At least if your deck's really based around blue, because then you're basically running a blank and the +1 attack in the utility slot. Using your upgrade for the turn on that, you could probably get a better use out of that. So it's good in an aggro deck. It's not good in a defensive deck. So the pips really tell the story here.
I agree. Speaking of the pips, one thing to even add further to the Fort Max point you made earlier, Kent, it is orange-black. So it is, in and of itself, flipping it will satisfy the condition for the body mode of Fortress Maximus. On top of the fact that it has utility when played. So, just really solid. I think it's a pretty solid card. I think it won't see too widespread of play, but I do think it'll definitely see some.
Cool. I just look at the picture and the title of the card, and I think the Spaceballs escape capsule scene where they're all having to eject from Mega Maid.
My gosh, it's not just a spaceship. It's a transformer.
Metamorphosis completed, sir. Spaceball 1 has now become Mega Maid.
Cool. So next card is Fusion Borer. This is a black pip uncommon weapon. It gives 3 pierce and 3 static attack. to your character. And when the upgrade character attacks, scrap this card after the battle. I think this is really powerful, and I want to go back to Sound Blaster. I believe how the ruling works is the same way that Crowbar worked on Sound Blaster, which is if you attack with Sound Blaster, you pick up Crowbar or Fusion Borer, Crystal of Power, and you attack, it stays on him after the attack. I'm not exactly sure why it works that way. Maybe Kai can help us out with that because he's really good with the rulings on everything. But that is how Crowbar worked, I believe. And that makes this very, very, very powerful, especially if you're looking at Sound Blaster and Nova Storm. You know, now she's piercing for 6 and attacking for 8 when you move it over to her with Sound Blaster's ability. I mean, wow. It's quite good.
So I believe the reason why it works is because of the way the trigger for attack works. So if something attacks, as soon as it attacks, it checks that's when it checks the trigger for for scrapping after battle, which is why, because you're using a Sound Blaster to recur the Fusion Board from grave or from scrap pile, I believe that's why it works like that. I'm not 100% sure, but that's the argument I've been seeing. But just on the card itself, I'm actually more excited for to play in Trigger Happy decks, because one of the amazing things about Trigger Happy and is his static pierce and the fact that he keeps getting weapons. So Opportune Offensive and the bigger they are really strong cards, but you can't recur them back outside of Battlefield Legend. But you can recur them back with Trigger Happy. So every other turn you're getting an Opportune Offensive. I think that's pretty solid. Not to mention you can stack off Opportune Offensive and or bigger they are onto this card and just shoot for the ceiling real quick. So I'm a big fan of this card.
Yeah, as much as I was wet blanket for Grab Inhibitor on the last episode, I'm going to be that much of a fan of Fusion Borer. This card is fantastic. I wish it had an orange pip to go along with the black pip, but I guess that would be
Of course you do.
That would be insane.
I guess that would just be too good. But it's black grenade launcher basically, and grenade launcher has been a mainstay in every deck that's based on orange. So in that same way, any deck that's based on black, I don't see why it wouldn't be running this card.
Yeah, I think this is the card from Wave 5 I have put in the most decks, which kind of surprised me as I've been going through, right? So, like, interestingly enough, I don't think the power level of this card is anything, like, flashy. I think it's just really solid. It just does a bunch of things that are really good. I mean, Pierce pips are really powerful right now because the defenses and the just number of blue pips has been very high as of late. Leading up until the most recent thing where, like, you know, the orange and black decks are everywhere. +3 attack on a weapon is kind of right at, like, you're right on playable just with that alone, right? I mean, it's basically already Power Punch, kind of like as a baseline, and then you get, on top of that, you get, like, Pierce 3, so it's better than Energon Axe for the turn where you attack with it, which is kind of insane. Like, I've been playing it in a couple of, like, blue decks, actually, just to have additional piercing weapons to be able to, like, increase my clock in some of them. And I've been really impressed. I think this card is going to be everywhere. Like, I would be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah, also the art is super cool. That's actually Ironhide holding the Fusion Borer, and I imagine he's, like, cutting into the side of, like, Triptychon or Scorponok or something like that.
So the next card that we have is Staggering Might. It's an upgrade utility white pip. While the upgraded character has 16 stars or more, it has Bold 1 and Tough 1, and it gives +1 attack. One thing to know is you don't actually have to play this on it doesn't have a restriction on who you can play it on. So a cute thing that you can do is put it on a combiner piece, and then just give them the +1 attack, and then when they combine, then they get the Bold 1 and Tough 1. So that's pretty neat.
Like Alpha Bravo?
Yes, yeah. This is very relevant for aerial bots because they've been always looking for that +1 attack for Alpha Bravo, and this gives them the tough one on Superion when he combines. So it's very solid in that deck. But any character that benefits from that is 16 stars or higher, I think wants this card.
Yeah, it definitely goes in any deck like that. Like, I mean, it's sort of screaming Metroplex to me. And obviously, Sky Shadow would want it. It would make Sky Shadow bold 3, tough 3, which, yeah, I know, man, that's a lot. So, and a white pip card can go in anything, and you're getting the +1 out of your utility. I mean, it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, I mean, it also goes in Fort Max, right? Like, kind of stacking the bold one, the bold tough combo that you already get from having the Cerebro's head. So he'll be bold 2, tough 2 just with this, and base 9 attack. You're almost guaranteed to trigger the body mode ability at that, and then you're just gonna, on top of dealing 2 damage to everybody on their team, you're just gonna basically wipe somebody. I mean, I think this card is pretty solid. It's a bummer that we don't really have, besides Fort Max, any of the Titan Masters that are capable of kind of enabling this, but it can go in Jetfire from Wave 4. I don't know if any of you guys knew this or not, but I like that character.
Do you now?
We leave that to you, Mr. Jetfire.
Yeah.
OG Mr. Jetfire.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure it goes in there. I think it has merit at least as a one of. But Jetfire actually got some pretty good spoilers this week. We have a couple more that we're going to cover that I think also might make their way into those lists. But yeah, that's all I got for this one.
Cool. Well, I was thinking the promo Omega Supreme. He's 19 stars, and no, I'm really not thinking about that character at all. You guys pretty much covered it all with Staggering Might. It's a fantastic card. It's going to see a lot of play in a lot of decks that, support big boys.
All right, so it's my honor to go on to this next card for you guys. This next card is a secret action called Intrusion Countermeasures Software. It's a black pip, green pip. You reveal it, and if an opponent's cards would cause you to scrap one or more cards from your hand during their turn, you reveal. Instead, you draw 2 cards. So it's going to be really hard to know when your opponent is going to make you discard cards, and even so, you're paying a card to try to stop them from making you discard a card, and then you get to draw 2 cards if you guessed right. I think that this card is terrible, and I think that probably nobody else has anything else to say about that. Did I pretty much cover it?
No, I've got one thing.
Oh, okay.
So before the cast, and there's no way that anyone listening would have known this otherwise, before the cast, Joel got very sassy to several people in this podcast, and as his punishment, we made him talk about this card. It's a rare. It's got not the greatest pips. It's a really situational card that doesn't give you that much in exchange for really kind of guessing out of the blue that something was correct. This is unplayable.
This card will get better in time, as there are more cards that, make your opponent discard cards. This is actually, if that ever becomes a mainstream type of strategy with more cards, such as Espionage and then flip abilities, such as Chrome Dome, if that becomes like a mainstay, then this is a pretty good card. It's basically like, hey, if they're going to make you discard something, you basically say, I counterspell that and draw 2 cards.
So it doesn't actually stop Chrome Dome, by
Correct,
the way.
yeah.
It doesn't actually stop Chrome Dome. My bad.
It does stop Major Shockwave from making you discard.
I think you're better off just playing Pocket Processor. They're scrapping cards from your hand for the long-term game. And Pocket Processor is better long-term, so.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say, though, rip Wave 1 Shockwave. You only live for one wave, but I hope you enjoyed it.
This does have the longest card name of any card in the game. It has that. It takes down that prize. It's literally 2 lines of text.
Well, congratulations, guys. Y'all had a lot more to say about it than I thought. So
Yeah, proved you wrong, didn't we, Joel?
that's right.
Let's move on to something that's a little bit more playable. I'm going to talk about Master Sword. So Master Sword was actually part of the pair of cards that were previewed by Drew Nolasco. But this one is a blue pip upgrade weapon that gives you +4 attack. I did not stutter. I did not read that incorrectly. It says +4. But the caveat is you can only play it to replace a weapon on a character that has no empty weapon slots currently. If an opponent's card would cause Master Sword to be scrapped from your character, in its place you can scrap a weapon from your hand. This card is nuts. I mean, +4 is the highest weapon bonus, like attack bonus we've seen on a weapon. It's currently on Grenade Launcher, which scraps itself after 1 use. This would just stay there, but it does have to, be placed over something that's already in play. And then on top of that, you can kind of build your own spare parts by picking up green pip weapons or drawing other weapons naturally into your hand. I mean, this thing is nuts. Tell me I'm not crazy, guys.
Oh, it's fantastic. I could really see it being used with Jetfire also. Like, say you play an armed hovercraft on him, then you drop down a Master Sword when it's time to swing again. And, your sabotage armament? Well, I'm going to discard a handheld blaster. Yes, I'm very excited about that. I wish it didn't have you can only replace a weapon on a character that has no empty weapon slots. Just as a fun deck, I still love blue Predacons, so like that would be so amazing on Predaking, but you already have such a difficult time filling up all 5 of his weapon slots that you probably wouldn't be able to use this.
I knew you were going to bring up Predaking. As soon as I saw this guy, I was like, damn, he's going to talk about Predaking. But, you could just put it on the combiner piece. But I don't know if you want to run that risk.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this card. This is a card that takes advantage of card advantage, which is something I've expressed that I've been wanting in this game for card advantage to matter. So +4 attack, that gives you 6 weapons to discard for 6 gun for +4. That's ridiculous. Yeah. And then when 6 gun dies, you can just replace the Pierce 3 or the Pierce 4 weapon with Master Sword. So I'm pretty excited for that. Try that out.
Well, that all sounds really good. The card is really strong, obviously. It's really hard to get rid of because they can't make you scrap it, but they can use disarm and you just pick it up. So then you pay 2 weapons and they made you pick it up. So there is that. That's really maybe the card's only real weakness, other than it's almost like other than in the best circumstances, like when you're using an armed hovercraft or something like that, you don't want that equipped to your guy. It's not really having an impact in your weapon slot, so you put Master Sword over, but it's still taking you 2 turns of upgrade plays just to get 1 upgrade on a guy.
So you can actually circumvent that in one specific way, which is that you can play multi-tool onto a specialist and then play Master Sword over the multi-tool.
Yes, but then you have to play multi-tool.
Yeah, but hear me out. It's not the worst upgrade in the world. It does give you +1 attack. I don't know. I'm just saying it's something. This card kind of... Ooh, pardon me. So, Kent, you were talking about how you hated not hated, but you wish it didn't have the no empty weapon slots tag on it. That kind of screams to me that they were playing it like internally, and somebody used dual wield with that card a few too many times.
Yeah.
They just were like, and I'm gonna put this onto my Octone, and he has a Master Sword and whatever my other weapon is, attack you for 53 or whatever it is. I'm kind of happy that it doesn't work with that card that way. I do think this card is just absolutely insane, though, and I see myself playing quite a bit of it, in all honesty. The 6-gun deck sounds particularly interesting from what Kai was talking about.
6-gun also pairs very nice with Jetfire, just saying.
I mean, it's not as good as Thrust, man.
Agree.
Okay.
That's why you and I play Thrust.
Okay. I want to move on to the paired card.
Cool. Well, the paired card is actually just the exact opposite of it. So they kind of run in symmetry to one another, and that is Ghost Shield. It's an orange pip instead of a blue pip and gives +3 armor. Play this only to replace an armor on a character that has no empty armor slots. If an opponent's card would cause this to be scrapped from a character, you may scrap an armor from your hand instead. +3 armor is very, very, very significant. Will it see play or not?
One thing to know is you can cheat this into play with Wave 1 Jetfire and Hunker Down.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Very true. I bet Demolisher would love to see this on him as well. Kind of an additional functional copy or several of composite armor to give you big swings.
I think this card is actually really, really, really cool for an aggro deck. Aggro decks are really, really always using Force Field or
Bashing Shield.
Bashing Shield. Yeah, I don't mean to replace Force Field as in you put it on top of the Force Field so that you can get it in play. But they're often using those to negate huge swings from their opponent because they're not doing anything else to defend. Having +3 armor is going to stop a lot, especially when you're talking about playing against a blue defensive deck that, unless they're getting Pierce, isn't really swinging for a whole lot. The only con to it is that you have to have other armors in your deck that you're going to play. So other than, I guess, Force Field and Bashing Shield, there aren't really other ones that you're wanting to play. So,
I know one.
Okay.
Improvise Shield.
You could play the Improvised Shield. You're absolutely right. You know, I forget about that card actually having anything besides a blank text box and 2 orange pips.
Drop the shields.
Make it so.
Like a true aggro player.
You're absolutely right. That card is an armor. It's a improvised shield. So yeah, you could play that the turn before, but it still has the same drawback that I was talking about with Master Sword, that you're spending 2 turns D'ing up one of your guys when that's probably not what you want to be doing if you're playing an aggro deck. And while 3 defense is really good, it's sort of a trade-off if you wanted to play this in a defensive deck with blue pips. Every time you flip it over, you're losing out on defending already. So it's a risk-reward thing in that case.
I could see this in something like a Jetfire deck, right? So, like, I could see this alongside Jetfire in, let's say that there are matchups where you want to play something like W5 Gyro Blaster in your deck, but you don't want to give up your ability to defend against some larger numbers if your opponent plays like a +4 weapon or something like that. Having Ghost Shield as something that you can find easily because of your ability to kind of treasure hunt through your deck, and then also be able to discard extra paddings that you've picked up over the course of the game from your hand to make sure that it can't be scrapped by opposing Bashing Shields or root processes or anything like that, that sounds really attractive to me.
No, that sounds really good. If someone reprocesses this, would you still gain the life? Even though it's not being scrapped?
I do not know. I absolutely don't know. I'm not sure if it's an if you do clause or not.
I think both happen simultaneously because it's why you can reprocess an energy pack off Optimus and he would still be alive.
Yeah, I think both happen. Okay, well, I think that covers all the spoilers we've got from this week. I'm sure we'll get, another huge truckload of them for the next one. While we still don't really have any questions from the viewers for this episode, if you listening are finding this on our YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe, but also leave any questions you have for us or you'd like us to address in the coming episodes. In the future, you can also listen to the Transform Your Game podcast on SoundCloud under the same name as the site and YouTube channel if you find that's easier for you. It's transformyourgame.net. I believe we recently also submitted for being able to be on Apple Podcasts or iTunes Podcast. So hopefully that'll come through soon, and will also be available to you there. We're working on the other platforms, so hopefully you can have a little bit of patience there with us. But that ought to do it for episode 3. Thank you to everyone out there listening. Thank you to my co-hosts. And if you out there find the input and information here valuable, you can find more strategy, analysis, tournament reports, and more like it at transformyourgame.net. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to comment any questions you have for us. And until next time, clear eyes, flip bots, can't lose.